Hey guys, today I am going to be talking about the levels of psychological health for Enneagram Type 9. Last one in the series. The levels of health, as I've said before in other videos, are a theory that was developed by Don Riso and Russ Hudson, who in my opinion are two of the greatest Enneagram experts that have ever lived. They have largely influenced what I do and the theories that I have. So as usual, we're going to start at the lowest level of psychological health, which in other words is a 9 that is just completely without coping mechanisms at this point, okay? And we're going to go all the way up to level 1, which is the healthiest 9 that there is. A very self-actualized 9 is probably a better way to say it, okay? So levels of health come in 3 clusters. There is what we call the unhealthy cluster, which are levels 9, 8, and 7, with 9 being the worst, okay? They ascend, right? Then you have what's called the average level. Those are levels 6, 5, 4. And then you move up into the healthy levels, which are levels 3, 2, and then 1, which again is a fully self-actualized 9, okay? I am going to say, before I get into this one, as I wrote my material for this, I had a plethora of information to choose from and examples to choose from, again, because my life literally is inundated with 9s. And, you know, I don't mean this to be rude, but it's like, my experience with them has been like they're cockroaches. They're everywhere and I can't get rid of them. I don't want to get rid of them. I love them. But the point that I'm trying to make is because I have so much material, I am not entirely sure if I'm going to get all 9 levels done in one video. So I've been thinking about doing a series for this one as well, just doing 3 separate ones, maybe like 15 minutes each instead. But we'll see how it goes. I'll watch my time depending on where we're at. I'll wrap it up or keep it going. Another thing, I usually have my notes up on the screen so that I don't have to look away from you guys when I'm talking, but today I didn't have time to type them up. I had to write them down, so I have a little sheet over here. So I'll probably be looking away a bit more than normal, so if that bothers you, then you know this is going to be, I don't know, a bad experience for you, I guess. Yeah. So, all right, level 9. The most unhealthy type of 9 that we have. When someone who is a 9 is at a level 9 state of psychological health, I like Don Riso and Russ Hudson's description of this. They use the words disoriented and catatonic. They're applicable words, but they don't necessarily apply in the colloquial sense, and so I'll expand on that. When we talk about 9s being disoriented, it doesn't mean that they stand up and they get dizzy and they fall down. It doesn't mean that they have hallucinations or dementia or anything like that. These are 9s that have so completely mentally checked out from life and reality and even from themselves. It's like they don't even realize what's going on in the world anymore. I knew in my life, I've known one 9 that was like this. It was an older man who had lost his wife. She was fairly young. I mean, I think she was in her 50s, you know, much too early to lose your wife anyway. And he was a 9, did not take it well at all, completely plummeted straight down to like a level 9 state of health. The man, I kid you not, this is no exaggeration. When 9s are at this state, I've seen it. They sit there and they don't do anything. This man would sit in a chair for 8 hours a day or more, wouldn't talk to anybody, wouldn't get up. Actually, as it progressed, he stopped getting up to use the bathroom, even though he was perfectly capable of doing it. And he would just go to the bathroom in the chair that he was sitting in, and then he would just sit in it all day until somebody came along and smelled it and realized what had happened. Wouldn't eat unless you brought him food. And you know, you could turn the TV on for him, and he just sits there. And you know, they'll talk to you, so it's not like they're stupid or anything. It's not like you're dealing with someone who's brain dead, right? They'll sit and have conversations with you, but they'll talk about things that don't make sense, things that aren't necessarily applicable. Like this guy that I used to know, he would talk about businesses that haven't been around since the 80s. He would talk about like political events and things that happened back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And at first it can seem a lot like they have dementia, especially if they're older, but The difference is with dementia, you get irritability and things like that. So this isn't the same thing, but he had become so depressed and so lost without his wife, because when she was alive, he oriented so much around her that it's like when she died, he had no idea who he was. He didn't have any coping skills on board to develop his own sense of self without her. And he just lost who he was. The phrase that I like to use for nines at this state is ghost in the shell, because quite literally at this stage, the person that you're interacting with who's a nine, it's not even like a person anymore. They're like the ghosts of people who were, and they're just in these biological shells, quite literally the ghost in the shell. It's an exceptionally hard thing to describe unless you've seen it in person. I had only ever seen it that one time, and I was in disbelief, still am, at how severe it was. I couldn't believe that someone could be so emotionally and mentally checked out that they just sat there in this catatonic state and didn't speak and didn't eat and lived like that. You know what I mean? It was definitely disturbing and sad to see, but that's 9 at a level 9 state of health. When we go up from there, excuse me, we go to a level 8 state of health. So 9s at this level, they're still entirely checked out, at least from everything that's external of them. So jobs, family, kids, friends, maybe even hobbies or things that they enjoy for fun. They just detach from all of that, and they kind of go into, I don't know if crisis management mode is the right way to say it, but they just kind of put that really hard outer shell on. They put the wall up, and at that point, the only thing that they care about is them and just maintaining their own status quo. At this point, for 9s, they have been through something that is so horrendous, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one individual crisis. It could be a series of crises that have built over time, and the pressure has just become too much for them. Pressure is a big thing for 9s. They don't like that. That's one of the first things that starts, rattling their cage a little bit, you know? So it could, this in all likelihood is a 9 that's either not responded to one crisis well, or has had a variety of crises put upon them in too close of a time period, not giving them enough time to process it, in other words. So this is a 9 that literally goes into self-preservation mode. They don't want to be bothered with what you need, what you want, what you think, what you feel. Don't tell them, don't talk to them. You stay over there, I'll stay over here. They are literally in survival mode. They are just trying to keep themselves functional and awake to life, is what I like to say. At this point, they can seem kind of angry, and I actually don't know if angry is the right word. That's probably too strong of a word. I would say irritable is a good word. These are the 9s that if you make even the tiniest request of them, they just snap. You know, they don't necessarily have a temper tantrum or go into some tirade, but they just, they've got these, they snap at you, you leave them alone. They're trying to keep you away because they are so desperate right now to just hold themselves together. Literally, the time you could ask them to pass you a napkin and get some kind of nasty backlash for that. They can't. It's just leave them alone. They're on edge. Their nerves are all messed up. They're not mentally present anymore. They're not emotionally present. They're just in their world and they're trying to survive. So you can see how logically the next step down from that would be even to let go of the self, which is what we got at a level 9 stage of psychological health for this number. That's what happens when they're in this level 8 mode where they've shut everybody else out already. They've kind of detached from reality, but they're still maintaining some sense of self, or they're trying to. They're trying to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps and just save themselves. Just like, I just need to emotionally handle myself. I can't handle anybody else anymore. And if they can't do that, that's when they sink down to that level 9. And we see the completely catatonic 9, the ghost in the shell 9, right? Going up to a level 7, at this point, 9s are still probably checked out at this point. So in other words, if you're in a relationship with them at this point, they're still mentally and emotionally, they're not present in your relationship. They're still gone. but they're functioning better on a day-to-day basis. They aren't going to be as irritated at this point. They're going to feel it, but it's not coming out yet. It's still kind of building underneath the surface. But this is the 9 that I think most strongly demonstrates anxiety. So if you've studied Enneagram at all, you've probably heard that each number has a number of integration and disintegration. And all that means is when you're really, really healthy, you take on the energy and some of the better characteristics of a certain number on the Enneagram. And when you're really unhealthy, you take on the certain energy and characteristics of another number on the Enneagram, right? For 9, the number that they go to in disintegration, so in other words, when they're really, really unhealthy, the number that they go to is 6, which is my number. So because it's an unhealthy swing, if you will, from one number to another, they are taking on the most negative aspects of type 6. So in other words, this is where 9s are going to start getting into their, I call it the tinfoil hat stuff. They're doing their worst case scenario thinking. There's tons of anxiety. I don't know how I'm going to handle this. What am I going to do? Still very well-intentioned people, but sometimes if they're at a level 7 state of psychological health, this is the 9 that is so desperate to quell that anxiety. They're going to, this is where you're going to start to see the self-medication and the abuse of different substances, not necessarily drugs, but their vices is probably a better way to say it. This is going to be the point where you really start to see that kick in. If it is drugs, it'll be drugs. Alcohol, it's going to be alcohol. Sex addiction, pornography, what I call screen time, which is where they literally spend their entire life in front of, like, I don't know, fucking Netflix. Seriously, they can spend 10 hours a day there and they're cool. Some 9s will sleep a lot. They just get up for a couple of hours, pop some more pills, go back to bed. This is going to be about the time that you see that. This is when 9s start to blow off responsibility, not because they're bad people, but because the anxiety and the pressure has become too much and they don't know how to handle that. These are the 9s that if they suspect that somebody at work is going to initiate a confrontation with them, they are going to call into work and not go in. And then they'll do it again the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. And however many days they have to do it until they feel reassured that they can go to work without being confronted or made uncomfortable or have excess pressure put on them. Does that make sense? This is also the 9 who, if they have relationships, and I don't even mean romantic, like friends, family, parents, sisters, brothers, whatever, if they have got a particular person that is being overbearing, or how they perceive overbearing. I mean, you may not perceive yourself as being overbearing, but they probably will, because if they're at a level 7 state of health, at this point, they're exceptionally sensitive to attention that they get. They can't handle a lot of it, even if it's positive attention. Sometimes it's just kind of like, you need to go away and let me breathe, okay? And if you are, if they're perceiving your attention as being overwhelming, as putting a lot of pressure on them, especially pressure to reciprocate, this is the point where they just start cutting people off right and left. And it's not necessarily that they cut you off forever, but it's kind of like they'll go into this time, and it's different for every 9. It could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years, where they just don't talk to you. They don't delete your number from the phone. They don't tell you they never want to see you again. They just withdraw in order to quell the anxiety and get themselves together, right? So you can see how if a 9 is having all of this anxiety and they're avoiding and avoiding and avoiding and avoiding and avoiding, and the anxiety and the pressures of life are still too much and they don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with that, it's very natural then for them to fall into level 8, which is under that, which is where they're like, you know what, fuck you guys. I don't even care about you anymore. I am literally focused on 100% me. I'm going to do whatever it is that I have to do to survive. And if you don't like it, you don't need to be in my life. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. They're absolutely just withdrawing from everybody. It's about them, and that's the end, right? So that is Enneagram type 9 in the most unhealthy states of psychology. Okay, so level 9, level 8, level 7. So now we're going to go up into the average states of psychological health. So level 6, level 5, level 4. And I'm going to need to get my notes out for this one. I had a lot of different notes. Most of the 9s that I know have been been in this category, but that's the case for any number. Most people, no matter what your number, you're in the average range somewhere. 4 is almost always the level that every person is at, myself included. But so I have a lot of notes for this one. So when we get into a level 6, which is the lowest level in the average bracket, right? When a 9 is at a level 6 stage of psychological health, this is the point where they're not necessarily irresponsible yet. In other words, they're still functioning. They can live life. They can get up and go to work even if they fear that somebody is going to be waiting there to confront them about something. They can come home to a partner knowing that, they're pissed about something and they're probably going to start getting, reamed up the ass when they walk in the door. They can handle all of that stuff, but they have really started putting up that wall. It's a pretty thick wall. And so I think at this point they can almost come across as being flippant, because they will engage in the day-to-day activities as they would have at any other time. But you can kind of tell that there's this lack of sincerity there. And so it almost seems like they're going through the motions, not even really because they feel like they have to. They're going through the motions to shut you up so that you'll leave them alone, and they can kind of maintain their homeostasis, right? So when we're at a level 6, this is where it starts to get, in my opinion, unbearable. Level 5 can be a pain in the ass too, but this is the point where I'm ready to pull my hair out. Again, I'm married to one of these people. Great guy, but this is the point where I'm like, dude, I can't deal with this, right? So some characteristics when they're at a level 6 stage of health. 9s at this point are minimizing problems in severe ways. And 9s, if you've watched any of my other videos, 9s are minimizers by nature anyway. Everything is always so much smaller to them than it really is. It's kind of like if they go to their favorite restaurant, they really had something in mind that, they have like their thing that they order, and they get there and the guy's like, oh, we took that off the menu. 9s are kind of like, okay, no big deal. They have other stuff to eat. I'll just try something new. Right? So they've taken a problem and they've just minimized it. It's no big deal. I talked about this in a previous video. If you're in a relationship with a 9 and you come in and you talk about, I'm unhappy, this is why, it's not that they don't hear you, and it's not that they don't care. It's that it takes such a huge event to make them realize that they've been underreacting. And so you can tell them things like that, and they'll hear you, and they're genuinely sorry. But, in their head, it's like, my husband, I can already tell, in his mind, it's like he's thinking, she's just tired. It's not a big deal. Just let her vent and get it out, and then tomorrow she'll be fine. I don't have to worry about it. And he doesn't understand that what I'm saying is very, very serious, right? You're going to start to see a lot of that at this point, just minimizing absolutely everything. This is the point where they're going to start minimizing really, really big problems. 9s at this state, I mean, like if you were married to one, you could probably come in and pack your bags and like literally leave. And 9s at this state are probably going to be sitting there like, he is just doing it to make a show. He'll be back. He knows he can't live without me. It's ridiculous. And then they just go on and, watch TV and do whatever they're doing. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't occur to them, hey, the person that you live with just fucking left. You know what I mean? It takes a few days for these people to realize, oh, hey, there's a problem, right? That's one characteristic. Oh, this one's hard. When they're at a level 6 stage of psychological health, this is where 9s have become, they're starting to get kind of desperate to maintain that homeostasis, right? They want to keep even keeled. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to have any drama. And so this is when 9s start to become really dishonest. They will placate you. They will tell you what you want to hear. They'll look you straight in the face and lie. They'll say, everything's fine. Everything's cool. I'm not mad at you. They are so pissed at you. They could stab you in your sleep, but they're not going to tell you, because their fear is that telling you how they feel will upset you. And then because you're upset, you're going to backlash at them. And that's what they're avoiding. They don't want to have to put up with that, right? So the problem with 9s at this level is you almost kind of have to take what they say with a grain of salt. Not so much if things are okay, but if you kind of get into choppy waters, whether it's between, the two of you, or if it's about another situation or whatever, you got to kind of take what they say with a grain of salt, because they're going to tell you what they know you want to hear so that you don't make a big issue out of it, because at this point, they don't have the energy or the strength anymore or the coping skills on board to go in and deal with this really big issue. Again, it's reverting back to that ability to check out. So in essence, what they're doing is they're telling you what you want to hear so that you'll leave them alone, so that they can stay out of reality, so that they can check out, right? This is a really common one at level 6. Level 6 is also when you start to see their stubbornness really come out. Again, you're going to see a little bit of that in level 5, but in level 6, it's pretty brutal. In my opinion, the stubbornness at level 6 starts to get to the point, that's the stuff that makes me want to pull my hair out. These are the people that, okay, and here's the thing. 9s, they're not assertive and aggressive people, at least not with how they feel and not with how they think, right? So if they don't want to do something, they're not going to tell you no, but they stonewall you. So here's what that looks like. They will stop answering your calls for a few weeks. They will stop answering your text messages for a few weeks. They will avoid you if they see you for a few weeks. They will, if you live together and they can't get away with that, they're going to do the thing where you bring it up again and they're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember you bringing that up. When did we talk about that? And they're going to pretend like they have no idea that you've mentioned it before, and they're going to do it again and again and again. And as long as they think they can get away with it, they're going to do it, because again, they're trying to check out. They are stubborn in the most passive-aggressive way, and that's probably what can be so infuriating about them at this point, because it's like they just can't say, hey, I'm overwhelmed by this. Can you please give me some space to process this for a little while? They can't say it. The anxiety and the fear that you're not going to receive that well, and you're going to respond and, be angry at them and cause problems for them, is so great that they lie, or they just cut you off. They stop talking to you. They avoid you. They'll give you time to cool off, or they'll give you time to forget what you were asking them for, or whatever it is that they felt like put pressure on them, and then they'll re-engage, right? Again, a very passive-aggressive way to check out, to avoid. It's a passive-aggressive way to control, is what it is. But they're doing it as a defense mechanism, because they are not in a place in life where they have emotionally found a way to handle whatever it is that they're going through, right? It's like a last-ditch effort. Another way that they're going to try to gain as much control as they can in their current situation is they're going. This is kind of where you start to see the checking out occur. This is where they start keeping what they think and what they feel to themselves. You'll ask them how their day was, and it's like, fine, same old, same old. They just had a shitty ass day and they're pissed about it, but they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to open up. They don't want to share. They don't want to open the can of worms, because they already had to emotionally experience it once earlier that day. Talking about it and rehashing it again is like having the experience twice. They don't understand that. It's like, I just had the experience once. Why do I want to have it twice, right? They're going to start keeping how they feel to themselves. Again, they're not going to tell you how they feel. They're not going to tell you what they think. And what's funny to me is I've noticed that it's not even like with negative things. I could see how that would make sense, if they're unhappy about something that you did. They don't want to confront you about it. I have noticed that 9s, when they get to this level of health, they just don't share anything, even if they're happy. It's like they don't want to talk about it. If they're excited about something or looking forward to something, they just don't want to talk about it. If they really like something, they're not interested in sharing it. They just keep it all to themselves, which I've always thought was really, really fascinating. My husband, when he gets to this point, he stops telling me that he loves me. I get absolutely no verbal anything from him, period. I have to, basically take a chainsaw to his throat to get him to, I'll ask him, I don't know, like, I got this dress. What do you think about this dress? I almost have to put a chainsaw to his neck to get him to tell me he does or he doesn't like it. It's infuriating. That's another thing that they'll do, though, is it almost feels like you'll talk to them and they can tell you like what happened. They can give you step-by-step progressions. What they're not going to give you is what they thought about that and what they felt about that. These are 9s that are probably going to start to shift the conversation more on you as time goes by, because it's more comfortable for them to hear about your life than it is for them to rehash theirs. Again, just a defense mechanism, because they're in a place where they are so stressed out and so anxious, maybe even depressed, that they just don't have the strength emotionally to be present for that, right? Excuse me. Another characteristic of a 9 at a level 6 state of health, they don't necessarily become inactive in life, but it's kind of like they fall into this belief that nothing that they do is really going to change the situation anyway, so why bother? You know what I mean? These are the 9s that have decided that it's okay to settle. Yeah, that's just the best way to put it. And I don't care what it is, they're going to settle. These are the 9s that they've been going through something really, really hard at work for a couple of months, and they've been fighting back and forth about it, and they've gotten to the point where it's so stressful, there's so much pressure, they can't take it anymore, and so they're going to drop down to a level 6 state of health, and they're just going to say, you know, nothing that I do is going to change this. I don't know why it matters, and they're going to go ahead and concede defeat, and they're going to pretend like they're happy about it. They're going to pretend like it's no big deal to them, even if it is, right? These are the 9s that if they are in a relationship with someone and the relationship isn't working out and they're not happy, they're going to say, if they're at this state of health, if they're at a level 6 state of health, they're going to say, you know, I mean, it's just so hard to meet new people. I don't really know if I want to do that. I mean, they're not really that bad. We have good days sometimes. I guess I could just stay here and put up with it. I have other things to keep me distracted. That sort of stuff. They're going to find all these reasons why their efforts to change things aren't going to change things, and so therefore they shouldn't put forth any effort. Again, if you're in a relationship with one, this is the point in their psychological state of health where they're really, really pulling out. This is where it's going to start to seem like they've checked out. It may even seem like they're abandoning you, or they're rejecting you, or they don't like you. It can come across that way just because they're gone. They don't talk to you like they used to. They don't share about themselves like they used to. They don't want to go out and do things like they used to. So you can kind of get that vibe from them. I have another point on here, but we're already kind of getting to the end, so I'm trying to decide if I want to dive into that one. Procrastination, huge one at this. They will put off even the most important things until the last minute at this point. They really, at this point, are starting to get super concerned about conserving their effort and their energy. So in their mind, it's like, if this isn't an emergency, I really don't want to be bothered with it, because they're just trying to, again, hold themselves together. Whatever energy that they have, they just want to maintain it for themselves. So it's like, if this is an emergency, I don't want to deal with it. You guys can handle it, that kind of a thing. Again, very unresponsive to life. You can prod, you can ask, you can be fully present, and they're just not going to reciprocate that. Level 6 state of health. I'm going to go ahead and cut it here. I had a feeling I was going to have to do more than one for this one. And we'll get into level 5 and 4, and then the healthier levels for Enneagram type 9 next time. So, yeah, there you go.